All right, so you know this is one of mine. Woo! Wanted to cover this while it's still hot. All right, so the Marvels has broken a lot of records, but not the kinds of records that Disney was hoping it would break. The Marvels collapses at box office with record-breaking second weekend drop. That's worse than Morbius. I know a lot of you are probably asking what the hell was Morbius. Exactly. The new Marvel Cinematic Universe outing, The Marvels, has the worst weekend 2 drop for any comic book movie, including the notorious Morbius. With the glut of new offerings, ticket sales for Disney's superhero sequel, The Marvels, cratered by 78% to land another ignominious record, the biggest second weekend drop by far in the history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Before this weekend, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania withstood the largest decline of the franchise with 69.9%. After notching the worst start in the entire MCU, the Marvels tied for third place with 10.2 million from 4,030 theaters. That's like 1.5 people per theater. That's me. That's my editorial note. Bringing its domestic tally to 65 million. The 220 million plus budgeted tentpole is the rare Marvel movie to underperform at the box office. And part of it's getting less rare these days. And part of the problem is that it's bearing the brunt of the audience's fatigue toward the sprawling franchise. But at this rate, it might not even match the opening weekend of its predecessor, 2019's Captain Marvel, 153 million, by the end of its theatrical run. It's shaping up to be the first Marvel movie to fall short of $100 million at the box office. So that is a disaster. Now, of course, there are a lot of takes on this, and I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of schadenfreude going on from many corners, but the analysis that's really making the rounds, and one that I personally agree with, and I'll get into that. We're doing it Jimmy Dore style. I'm going to save my take for the end. All right. So Chris Gore, if you don't know him, he's a film critic. He has a great channel, Film Threat. Check it out if you can. Turning Marvel and Star Wars into girl brands will prove to be one of the costliest decisions in entertainment history. Yes. And we will get into that. So somebody who decided they need to weigh in on this as the most annoying shit lib this side of George Takei is the master of horror, Stephen King, who has some horrible takes very often, usually about Donald Trump. He's a notorious Trump derangement syndrome sufferer. But in this case, he decided to wade into the culture wars. I don't go to MCU movies, don't care for them. But I find this barely masked gloating over the low box office for the Marvels very unpleasant. Why gloat over failure? To which Sargon of Akkad, who's a commentator in this space, because the people who make these movies hate us, Stephen. So I am going to give you, because the Master of Horror was not finished there, I am going to give you a little screen share. All right, so some of the rejection of the Marvels may be adolescent fanboy hate. You know, yuck girls. So Nerdrotic said, did you watch the Marvels? Maybe seeing a superhero film for teenage girls, a market that don't really go to see feature films and don't care about superheroes unless they're played by hot guys, was a bad strategy. I always laugh at this. They tried to defend the new Star Wars movies too, like a lot of Star Wars fans secretly hated Leia, as if they didn't also love Sigourney in Alien. All right, so you get the idea. And also, somebody pointed out here, there's kind of an inherent contradiction here. Since you don't go to MCU movies and don't care for them, that means you rejected the Marvels, right? Does that mean you hate women? So why did the Marvels fail? This is a source of a lot of Sturm und Drang. Even people who don't normally get into this space, like Matt Walsh, offer to take on this.
I've been wrestling with that myself.
He made me do this segment. All right, so I'm gonna tie this to what I'm reading right now. I am reading this, the case against the sexual revolution, which basically argues something that I have thought for a very long time in many different contexts, that a lot of feminism is sexist because it tends to adopt the idea often, not always, often, that in order to be powerful, women have to adopt the tastes and behaviors that are typically male, that we have typically associated with men. And in that effort, I agree with Chris Gore's take here. Disney was a girl brand. And the business logic of buying Star Wars and buying Marvel was to add boy brands to their girl brand profile. But instead of leaving well enough alone, they decided, theoretically, in order to boost their ESG score, get more investment from Vanguard and BlackRock, they decided to basically attack the core male fan base for these products and orient them towards women. The problem is, A, what's wrong with women having their own tastes? You know, a lot of people will point to Barbie and say, see, go woke, go broke is bullshit. I mean, it depends on how you understand it. They made a movie about Barbie, which is very much a girl brand, whose framing and tone was very much aimed at a female audience. Why wouldn't that succeed? Of course it would succeed. What if you handed over Barbie to Francis Ford Coppola, and you had a lot of guys promoting Barbie, talking about how they don't need menopausal white women telling them whether the movie is good or not? How would the fan base of Barbie react to that turn of events? That's basically what Disney did with this. For the most part, girls and women do not like these kinds of power fantasies. It's just not what they're into. It's more of a guy thing. Ooh, Hulk smash. Ooh, look how he picked up that tank and threw it, right? That's not really a girl thing. And if you really want to see that demonstrated, with everything that Marvel did to basically try to swap one fan base for another so that they could have their cake and eat it too, huge box office, high ESG scores, the majority of people who actually went to see Marvel's opening weekend, men, 65% of the audience was male, because that's the audience for superhero movies, even if you make it a cast of all women. So between this, the fact that not only Nelson Peltz, but another group has invested huge amounts of money in buying up Disney shares and plan to make a run at a hostile takeover, probably this is the end of this iteration of Disney. Like, they just can't keep losing hundreds of millions of dollars trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Please clap.